Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. You know, today we're looking at some truly fascinating research about human behavior that, I'll be honest, completely shattered how I think about what it actually means to be nice. If you're the kind of person who's always going out of their way for everyone else, you probably think you're building rock-solid relationships. I know I used to think that way. But when we actually look at the hard science of boundaries, well, the reality is kind of a wake-up call. Let's get right into it.
Research out of Stanford's behavioral science lab dropped a massive bombshell. Excessively nice people are automatically perceived as 67% less competent. Crazy, right? I mean, think about that for a second. Our brains are constantly making these split-second, unconscious judgments. And when you consistently put everyone else's needs above your own, people's brains actually file you under low status.
So right off the bat, we've got to ask ourselves a pretty tough question. Is all this bending over backwards actually earning us love, or is it secretly destroying our respect currency? Like, are we genuinely building connection, or are we just broadcasting to the world that our own time and needs don't really matter?
Section 1. The true cost of niceness. Let's really unpack the psychology here and figure out why the most accommodating people so often get passed over for promotions and why they usually end up feeling completely taken advantage of.
The workplace penalty for being overly accommodating is honestly staggering. An MIT study mapped out workplace interactions and found that folks who over-apologize, over-help, and avoid conflict were rated 71% lower in leadership capability. And here's the really wild part. This held true even when their actual work was vastly superior to their peers. Basically, the more they sacrificed their own needs to keep the peace, the less influential they actually became.
And the underlying reason for this is absolutely fascinating. Clinical psychologist Dr. Harriet B. Breicher hit the nail on the head when she noted that what society praises as niceness is often just psychological armor. It turns out people pleasers use it to avoid confrontation and hide their own deep anxieties. It's not necessarily some grand virtue. Honestly, it's mostly just a really heavy defense mechanism we lug around to keep people from getting mad at us.
Section 2. Kindness versus people-pleasing. If we want to break out of this trap, we first need to understand the fundamental behavioral difference between genuine kindness and people-pleasing. In psychological literature, chronic people-pleasing actually has a much more intense name: pathological altruism. This is when you irrationally sacrifice yourself, placing someone else's perceived needs above your own in a way that actively causes you self-harm. And the main driver here? It's not a big, warm heart. It is motivated almost entirely by a really intense fear of rejection. When you compare the two side by side, the contrast is pretty stark. Healthy kindness is intrinsically motivated by your own desire and free choice. You do it simply because you want to, period. But people-pleasing, that's a covert transaction. You're doing it out of fear, guilt, obligation, or just a desperate need for transactional safety. It's basically an unspoken contract saying, hey, if I sacrifice myself for you, you promise not to abandon me, right? Author Haley McGee has this brilliant little test to help you figure out which one you're actually doing in your everyday life. Just ask yourself, do your insides match your outsides? If you look super happy and generous while helping a coworker take on extra work, but inside you are just resentful, drained, and exhausted because you have your own strict deadlines, yeah, you're not being kind. You are people-pleasing.
Section 3. The psychology of disrespect. So why exactly does all this self-sacrifice invite disrespect rather than gratitude from the people around us? Let's decode the human behavior driving this super frustrating dynamic.
It really boils down to something psychologists call a reciprocity imbalance. See, when you are consistently generous without any boundaries whatsoever, people literally stop feeling grateful. Your exceptional giving just becomes their entitled normal. Without meaning to, you basically train them to expect your sacrifice as a baseline expectation, which completely erases the value of your efforts entirely.
An author over a tiny Buddha recognized this exact pattern in her own life. She realized that trying to make chronically dissatisfied people happy at her own expense was literally like dropping coins into a broken piggy bank. No matter how much of your precious energy you deposit, it just falls right out the giant hole at the bottom. It is a losing game, and it completely drains your reserves fast.
Section 4. Building your boundary cottage. The absolute only way to fix that leak and protect your energy is by setting firm boundaries based on your core values. It's time to build your boundary cottage. I love this metaphor from Psychology Today.
They beautifully compare your life and personhood to a quaint, beautiful little cottage in a village. Your boundaries? They're simply the fence and the lockable gate surrounding it. You obviously want to invite people in to share your joy, but that gate is absolutely essential. It keeps the bad actors and the psychological wolves out. It protects your safety and your peace.
So how do we actually build that sturdy fence? Therapy in a nutshell gives us a really straightforward 3-step procedure. Number 1, make a clear request. Number 2, set an I of then limit, focusing only on your locus of control. For example, if you continue to speak to me that way, then I will leave the room. You can't control their behavior, but you can always control your exit. And number 3, stay radically consistent.
Section 5. The assertiveness transition. Now, implementing these steps sounds easy enough on paper, but as we see in human behavior, shifting from a chronic people-pleaser to an assertive person is an incredibly messy process.
As outlined by feel-good psychology, when you start enforcing that gate, you're going to face a wild emotional roller coaster. You'll feel intense guilt about prioritizing your own needs and probably a ton of anxiety about how others will react. But here is the big one. You will face major resistance from the people who benefited the most from your lack of boundaries. When you change the rules of the game, they're going to push back. Just expect it. Section 6. Stepping into warm authority. Look, pushing through that messy transition is 100% worth it because it leads us to the ultimate goal. It's how you finally step out of the nice syndrome and into true empowerment.
The absolute sweet spot in human behavior is something UCLA researchers call warm authority. This is that incredible, rare ability to be genuinely caring while still maintaining your own worth, dignity, and strict boundaries. Social groups naturally respect and elevate individuals who display warm authority. They are tremendously helpful, sure, but they are highly boundaried and fiercely confident. And you get there by trading in your apology addiction for strategic generosity. Think about the phrasing shift here. Instead of shrinking your existence with a meek, sorry to bother you, but you step into warm authority by confidently saying, I'd like to discuss this when you have time. It's the exact same core message, but with completely different energy. It shows them you actually value your own time.
If you want to build back your respect currency, you need actionable steps. First, stop apologizing unnecessarily. It's literally like broadcasting a tiny advertisement that your needs don't matter. Second, wait to be asked before jumping in to help so you don't come off as overbearing. Third, address disrespect calmly right in the moment. Keep strict boundaries around your schedule and firmly own your successes without deflecting them. These small behavioral shifts signal to everyone else that your time is highly valuable.
When you value yourself, you teach others your worth. So the ultimate provocative question I want to leave you with today as you evaluate your own relationships and behaviors is this. Are you ready to stop being nice and start being real? Because the world doesn't need weaker, nice people. It needs stronger, boundaried, kind people. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.